But we do begin this morning with one of the most closely watched elections in the upcoming midterms.
Yeah, once again, the Georgia Senate race is in the spotlight as a new allegation against Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker comes to light. Attorney Gloria Allred says a second woman, only going by the name Jane Doe, has now come forward saying she had a romantic relationship with Walker and that after she got pregnant, he drove her to get an abortion. She says this happened nearly 30 years ago. The Republican candidate, who is running on an anti-abortion platform, has denied a similar earlier allegation against him as well as this one from yesterday. Now, this new allegation, it's rocking what is a close and hotly contested race. And now incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock is pouncing on this latest allegation, claiming Walker is unfit for office. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber joins us now from Cumming, Georgia with more. So, Ellison, let's start with the claims made by Jane Doe. What are the allegations? What kind of evidence did she and her attorney provide to try to back up her claims?
Right. So, Joe, these allegations have not been independently verified by NBC News. What was presented at that press conference was evidence of a relationship between Herschel Walker and this unidentified woman of some kind, but direct evidence of an abortion, that was not presented. This woman, only identified as Jane Doe, made a statement via Zoom at a press conference hosted by attorney Gloria Allred. You will hear her voice in this next clip, but you won't see her face. She says that she is afraid of reprisal. Listen.
Herschel Walker says he is against women having abortions, but he pressured me to have one. I am coming forward now because I saw Herschel deny the allegations by another woman who claimed that he had paid for her abortion.
Mr. Walker clearly wanted her to have an abortion and convinced her to do so. Our client alleges that Mr. Walker gave her cash to pay for the abortion and that she went to a clinic in Dallas, Texas.
So Jane Doe alleges that she and Walker met in the 1980s. She said they had a romantic relationship and she became pregnant with Walker's child in April of 1993. She claims that she discussed the pregnancy with Walker several times and that ultimately he drove her to an abortion clinic, paid for and pressured her to have an abortion. Again, NBC News has not independently verified these allegations. And again, what was presented at that press conference was evidence of a relationship of some kind, not direct evidence of an abortion. Gloria Allred played an apparent voice message. Walker left Jane Doe a clothed photograph Jane Doe allegedly took of Walker on a hotel bed and a series of greeting cards that Allred said were signed by Herschel Walker. Joe.
So, Ellison, I know Walker's on the campaign trail right now. What is he saying in response to all this?
Adamantly denying it. He calls this a lie. He said that this is foolishness. Listen.
I've already told people this is a lie, and I'm not going to entertain, because continue to carry a lie alone. And I also want to let you know I didn't kill JFK either. And right now they Senator Warnock, after he got crushed at that debate, now the Democrats are doing say whatever they can to win this seat. But I want them to know they don't know Herschel Walker. They don't know that I'm from Wrightsville, Georgia, and I'm going to win this seat.
He and his allies are implying that this is a politically motivated attack. He was asked in an interview on Fox News last night whether or not he knew who this woman is. He did not deny knowing her. He only said he was not going to play any sort of guessing game and reiterated what we heard him say on the campaign trail, which is that he says this is a lie. He called it foolishness and said his campaign is moving on. Joe.
So, Ellison, Walker's opponent, Senator Raphael Warnock, he had been relatively quiet about the allegations against Walker, but he's now speaking out more. What is he saying?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we didn't really hear from Warnock directly or his campaign in the immediate hours and days after the first allegation of abortion was made against Herschel Walker, but we heard from them very quickly in this case. The deputy campaign manager for Senator Warnock issuing a statement saying this, quote, "We know Herschel Walker has a problem with the truth, a problem answering questions, and a problem taking responsibility for his actions. Today's new report is just the latest example of a troubling pattern we have seen play out again and again and again. Herschel Walker shouldn't be representing Georgians in the U.S. Senate." Joe.
All right, Ellison Barber kicking us off this hour. Ellison, thank you so much. In other political news, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez is under federal investigation again.
Yeah, this comes after more than 4 years since the government dropped a different corruption case against Menendez. He was indicted on corruption charges in 2015, but it resulted in a hung jury just 2 years later. NBC News investigative correspondent Tom Winter joins us now with more on this. So, Tom, what more do we know about this investigation, and do we know how long it's been going on?
Well, I think that's really the big question, is how long this investigation has been going on. And this exact scope of this and what it involves is still a little bit unclear. We're trying to get some details. Semaphore, a news website that broke the story yesterday, had one person saying that they received a subpoena in the course of this, which would imply that there's a grand jury. That's not surprising at this point if this investigation has been going on for some period of time. But what exactly that period of time is, we're not entirely sure. So we're still trying to get our hands around the allegations. Look, as you said, this is somebody who has been under investigation before. It started late 2013. Our colleague Jonathan Dienst broke that investigation back in early 2014, centered around a whole host of different individuals and areas. But ultimately, as you alluded to, Menendez was charged. The person that he was charged alongside, a doctor from South Florida, Solomon Melgen, he was sentenced to 17 years in jail after he was convicted. And at the urging of Senator Menendez, former President Trump commuted his sentence just before leaving office.
So Menendez not up for re-election this year. He's up in 2024. But his son Rob is running for Congress in New Jersey. I believe is pretty much favored to win there. We know that the attorney's office for the Southern District of New York is declining to comment on this. It's Menendez's office that really confirmed this investigation exists. Correct. What else is Menendez saying right now? Yeah,
I mean, look, he's saying we're not sure what the scope of this is either, by the way, but we're happy to answer questions if we're contacted by the authorities. That's where he's coming from on this. Look, I think, time will tell where this investigation goes, but the sense that we have of it at this point is it's quite serious.
All right. A lot of questions left. Tom Winter, thanks.
Sure thing.
Now to new sanctions by the Biden administration on several Iranian officials after a violent crackdown on protests in that country. Just yesterday, security forces clashed with protesters who gathered to mark 40 days since the death of Mahsa Amini. That's the young woman who died last month while in police custody. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News global security reporter Dan DeLuce. Dan, good morning to you. So let's start with these sanctions. Who are they targeting, and what is the White House saying about them?
Yeah, they're targeting intelligence officials in the Revolutionary Guard Corps that are very much overseeing this brutal crackdown against protesters across Iran. They're also targeting regional governors who oversaw some very violent responses to the protests in some parts of Iran. And then as well, so-called cyber actors, companies or organizations that are involved in the surveillance of Iranians online and also censoring the internet to try to restrict people's access to the internet. And the White House is saying this is a way to hold Iran accountable for their response to these peaceful protests. And so they're saying they're going to be doing more of this, and it's kind of a naming and shaming exercise.
So, Dan, as you've reported, the White House has been criticized by some Iranian Americans and other activists over its response to these demonstrations over the last month. Did the stalled talks to revive the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran have any impact at all on these sanctions? Do we know?
The administration says no, not at all, that negotiation is really stalled and dead in the water, and they're focused on these protests. So they're saying these sanctions aren't related to that. But, of course, there is criticism the White House is facing that maybe they should just completely close the door on those negotiations.
And, Dan, it has been more than a month since Amini's death. In a statement, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, in part, the United States will, quote, continue to impose costs on individuals and entities in Iran who engage in the brutal repression of the Iranian people. So what other tools does the U.S. have at its disposal when it comes to Iran?
The tools are pretty limited because Iran is already under a tremendous amount of economic sanctions that have built up over the years. But I think the one tool they do have that they have not used is to make a declaration that they will completely rule out any further negotiations with the regime on its nuclear program. Because, of course, that offers a carrot to Iran. That says to them, if you agree to this deal, we'll lift some of these economic sanctions. And a lot of activists are telling the White House, you should just completely declare those talks dead and and not going anywhere near them, and even kick out Iran's ambassadors in the West and so on. So that's the one tool they haven't used.
All right, Dan DeLuce. Dan, thank you so much.
The Wisconsin man who drove his car through a Christmas parade last year has been found guilty on dozens of counts against him. NBC national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has more from inside that courtroom.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
The verdict was a clean sweep for prosecutors. Darrell Brooks guilty of all 76 criminal charges, including intentional homicide, reckless endangering safety, and hit and run causing death.
Are those your true verdicts?
Yes. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the chaotic 3-week trial came to an end as Brooks sat slumped over.
We are satisfied that this defendant has been held accountable for his actions.
It was last year at this Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, when Brooks plowed his car through the crowd, killing 6 and injuring dozens. Among the victims, the elderly and children.
We're stronger than him, and it's been proven today. It's just another step forward in the process.
Maintaining his innocence.
I am a lot of things. A murderer is not one of them.
Brooks, who represented himself, showed a range of emotions in what became a circus-like trial, deciding to plead not guilty by reason of mental defect.
Mr. Brooks, you're interrupting me yet again.
You just weren't speaking,
all right,
so
Mr. Brooks, you are now going to be removed to the other courtroom.
Brooks repeatedly interrupted the trial, at one point removing his shirt and staring down the judge, who removed him from court.
I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. Frankly, it makes me scared.
In Wisconsin, conviction of first-degree intentional homicide carries a mandatory life sentence. Darrell Brooks will be formally sentenced in the coming weeks. Back to you.
All right, Miguel, thank you.
Now to growing concern this morning over a wave of respiratory infections among children. Cases of RSV are spreading to more parts of the country, including warmer areas where the illness is rare. NBC's Tom Costello has more on the warning signs for parents.
3-year-old Izzy Banky is today almost back to her old self, but she's been through a rough few weeks. Homesick, a 2-hour wait in an urgent care clinic, a second urgent care visit, an ambulance ride to Children's National Med Center as she struggled to breathe. Then admitted with RSV-caused pneumonia.
Nobody wants to hold their kid down and hold a mask on their face. And so she's screaming and trying to rip the breathing tubes out. And that breaks your heart as a parent.
RSV is an ever-present respiratory virus, but especially serious in kids with low immunity after isolating during the pandemic. Now, hospitals nationwide say they're overwhelmed with sick kids. 74% of pediatric hospital beds nationwide are occupied. 89% in Missouri, 91% in Texas, 99% in Rhode Island. Seattle Children's tells NBC News it's at 200% capacity in the ER. At UW Health Kids in Madison, Wisconsin, the chief medical officer is urging parents to stay on top of the symptoms before kids have to go to the ER.
Suctioning the nasal passages, staying well hydrated, using anti-fever medications usually do the trick. We really want to pay attention to as kids under about 18 months of age that can develop more significant respiratory symptoms.
Seek immediate help if a child is in respiratory distress, breathing fast, nose flaring, using their shoulders or pulling under their ribs to breathe, and turning blue.
If you think your child's in danger, you need to go to the ER. I mean, that's a flat-out message.
Trust your gut, say doctors. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Time to get a check on your morning news now. Weather?
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now with more on the forecast. Hey, Michelle.
Hey there, guys. Great to see you. And the big story today, a cold front moving through the middle of the nation. Snow up to a foot in some spots in the Rockies, and then some severe weather possible. So we kind of have it all today. That's mainly in the middle of the country because the coasts are looking really good. Finally, the Northeast clearing out. But we're going to continue to watch this cold front. It's moving painfully slow. We're going to see this rain in the forecast not only today, but tomorrow and also through Saturday. So snow for the central and southern Rockies up to a foot in some spots. And then we're watching out for a late severe storm, strong to severe. We could see some hail, also some heavy rain. Then as we go throughout tomorrow, it doesn't move very far, and that's going to be the problem, too. So as we go throughout tomorrow, we're looking at those heavy rains soaking the central and east Texas portions of Texas. Today, it's going to be more western Texas. Gusty winds, that could cause some power outages. The ground's going to be wet, leaves still on the trees. So any sort of wind gusts could bring down those trees and also those power lines. As we look at a flood forecast, we're looking at heavy rain. It's going to be lingering for a while in the same spot. So for today, we're looking western Texas, moving a little bit further to the east by Friday and then into the Gulf Coast states by Saturday. This is going to be something we're talking about through Sunday as well. Your rainfall forecast, it's a lot of rain over a lot of area. We're looking at localized flooding in spots. Where you see those darker colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges, that's where we're looking at the heaviest rainfall. So even extending into portions of the Tennessee Valley, even close to the Ohio Valley as we get closer to Sunday. And then eventually into the Northeast by Monday. Severe threat today. We do have the hazard of damaging hail that could cause damage on its own up to an inch. We've had a lot of reports of that early in the week. Also, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see a tornado or two, but that is the least likely risk. That's the good news, but it's not zero. So we need to keep that in the forecast. Where you see the yellow here, Abilene, San Angelo, Lubbock, that's where we're looking at the chance for some severe weather. That moves off to the east tomorrow. Doesn't move very far. So now we're talking about the coast of Florida, the eastern coast of Florida. So Bay City, also Victoria, again, where you see that yellow, that's where we're looking at the threat for some severe weather. The cool air does expand. We're looking at temperatures in the 40s and 50s, 30 degrees in Telluride. That's certainly cold enough for some snow, and that's where we're going to see some snow in central and northern Rockies. But that cool air expands tomorrow. So it's a chilly rain in portions of Texas. Temperatures in the 50s, the 60s, 12 degrees below normal in portions of Lubbock at 55, 59 in Midland. Abilene 62, Dallas 60, 64 in Waco. Your snowfall forecast. You know what? The ski lovers are loving this, I'm sure. We're looking at those brighter colors, 6 to 9 inches in some spots, even up to a foot in those highest elevations of the Rockies. And we're going to get that winter season started, or at least the ski season started. Today, snow and chill throughout the Rockies, sunny and mild in the Northeast. Let's linger on that for a bit because we had some cloudy days the past 3 days. Fog, drizzle in place. We're clearing it out to a clear day. Lots of sunshine. Mild, too. It's going to be mild throughout portions of the Southeast as well. The one spot is in Florida, Central Florida, where we could see some thunderstorms. Taking a look towards the Halloween weekend, we're looking on Friday. Strong storms still lingering in portions of the Gulf Coast states. Lots of sunshine, though, in the northern plains, the Gulf Coast, into the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, into the Northeast, New England. So if you have any Halloween plans tomorrow, I know a lot of kids kick it off on Friday. It's going to look really good there. Still unsettled in the Northwest. But as we look towards Saturday, kind of a repeat performance. Great autumn day in portions of the Great Lakes, the Midwest, into the Northern Plains, also New England, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. The Southeast looks good, too. Heavy rain still in portions of the Gulf Coast, and we're looking at those brighter colors. So it's going to be those downpours. It's not going to be showers. Certainly need to carry the umbrellas there. Rain and wind in the Northwest, and unfortunately, this rain does move into the Northeast by Halloween. So I know.
So get a costume that involves umbrellas, raincoats, rain boots, as we've been discussing this week.
I'll bring them in. You can borrow them.
Use them for the first time.
Exactly.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.